You're listening to Little Pricks Podcast. We're so happy you're here. Get comfortable and enjoy the episode.
Alrighty, guys, welcome to the Little Pricks Podcast.
Ooh.
We've got your host, Devon.
Yeah, that's me.
He's the first half or other half of the Little Pricks team, and you've got me, Fareed.
I'm the better half, obviously.
You're the half lobotomized half right now.
I am.
There is no way you were the better half today.
I bumped my noggin. I was riding my mountain bike.
He tried to marry his head to the floor, and now it ended in divorce.
Yeah, no doubt. Dude, I had to go. I had to get that cut glued. I had to get a tetanus shot. My ribs hurt. Show
the camera your face.
I don't know if it'll show.
There we go. We've got some yellowing around the eye.
Yeah.
Right?
Some yellowing. Yeah, it started to bruising.
We all know why, right?
What?
Because in your marriage, the ground told you to do something, you didn't listen.
Oh, yeah? Is that what happened?
Yeah. So you got your first black.
I said, keep your tire on the trail. I said, how about I don't? And it said, how about...
Don't hit your hands, man.
I know, my hands are really sore.
Why do you... He keeps hitting his hands. He's just broken. He's got like a bruised rib.
Dude, I've got gravel on my hand, too.
He's got gravel in his hands, which
yeah.
Probably shouldn't pick at right now, especially on the podcast.
No, this is the perfect time, I think, actually.
Like I said, this is where Devon's head is at right now.
Oh, I didn't think it was too bad until like today I was at work, and I just feel foggy. Like I feel out of my element.
And the funny thing is, he's like, man, I don't feel right. I'm a little sleepy lately, and I don't have an appetite. I'm like, could that be a mild concussion? Just a mild concussion.
Valid. Yeah, probably is. However, I rode like 11 and a half miles after the crash. So
just because you have a concussion doesn't mean you can just stop doing things all the time. If it's a mild enough concussion, you can survive. You're just not 100% anymore.
No, I'm not. I'm gonna solid like 75.
I would say you are a solid 75. Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, yes. So that's what's going on in my life in the past week, Fareed.
And the funny thing,
what do you have?
So he got his head buried into the floor, right?
Yes.
That was on Saturday?
Sunday.
That was Sunday. I was doing boxing. That was boxing classes, not kickboxing that day.
Yeah.
I did one of my first spars, and I didn't know that you have to form the mouth guard to your mouth. I didn't know. I didn't know.
I can't believe you didn't know that.
I didn't know.
Did you play any sports before you got into boxing?
Only tennis. I did tennis, yeah. And I did running for a while.
Okay, fair.
Right? So that's I didn't know you had to do mouth guard. I almost did wrestling, but I was like, God, I want to go.
Yeah.
I want to be at home. I don't want to be around these people anymore.
No, that's fair. That's fair. That's how I knew about it, was football and wrestling, yeah. But yeah, if you read the instructions to the box or like the package, it tells you to boil it.
So here's the better part, right? I got so excited in class because they're like, who wants to do a spar? And I was like, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I want to do this.
Man, you signed up for it. It wasn't like, hey, Fareed, come on, man. You've been here long enough. And you're like, oh, okay.
No, they were like, who wants to do it? And I was like, I want to do this.
Me.
I'm like,
I will volunteer gladly to get punched in the face on purpose.
That's exactly what I did, right? So I put on my head again. They're like, put your mouth guard in. So I open the package, ignore all the writing on it, and like, right in my mouth. And I'm like, wait.
So nobody said, see, that's when I would have said something to you, is when you have the brand new mouth guard unopened, you open it up and put it in your mouth. I'd have been like, hey, bro.
Nobody said a thing.
Wow.
Not a single thing. I think they looked at me like...
Yeah, they got probably like, this kid's going to get his shit wrecked, dude.
Oh, yeah. And the best part was, so I put this in my mouth, and I can't breathe now.
Yeah, right.
Because this thing is
just this big thing.
It's just like this giant guard in your mouth.
Yeah.
And it keeps trying to fall out of my mouth. And I can see my opponent, like, he's talking with his mouth guard. I'm like, how are you doing this? How can you talk?
Yeah.
I can't breathe, but you can talk. So we go in there, and I do a pretty good job at first, while there's still, like, oxygen in my lungs.
Right.
And as we start to really get moving, right, and I'm, like, slowing down, and I'm just like, I can't get air inside, right? And at one point, as I'm like getting dizzy from not breathing, right? I get a solid right hook to the to the ear.
Of course.
And at that point, I'm like, "Are we done?"
Yeah.
And I couldn't even say anything because my mouthpiece kept popping out. I was like, "Oh,
yeah."
And they're like, keep going. I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
I kept going, and I got hit in the solar plexus twice after that, right? And I realized that after I got hit in the head that hard, I can handle anything.
Yeah, fair.
Like, I'm going to keep going. I couldn't breathe, but I kept going.
Honestly, I'm surprised that I kept riding after my crash. Dude, I hit the ground so hard. Like, there was no time to react. I was going so fast that I was just riding 1 second. Next second, I was not riding.
And that's how I felt about getting hit in the head, right?
Yeah.
So I get this hit to the head. I get hit in the solar plexus a couple of times. And finally, we both tap out because I can't breathe. And his shoulder is just done, right? Yeah. He's been training so hard. And I guess he injured it at one point. So we're both like, yeah, good game. Because I get a couple of good shots on him, right?
Yeah.
And I hit him once in the shoulder, the bad shoulder. And he was like, okay.
Yep. He's like, I'm done now.
We're tapping out. And so we both did pretty well. And then everyone was like, why couldn't you breathe? And I pulled out my mouthpiece. Like, that's
why.
That's not right.
That's it.
So, yeah. So, we both got a head injury.
Yeah.
Yep. And I was sore. My entire neck was sore for the next 3 days.
Getting rocked that hard? Absolutely.
I had a headache for the next 2 days after that.
Wow.
Yeah, I just lived with it. I was like, this is the trophy.
Really? This is great. That sounds like you got more head trauma than I did because I've never had a headache the whole time.
That's kind of worse, I think.
Like, briefly, when the day I did it, I had a headache, but it was like a 3 out of 10 pain headache.
I'm almost certain if you don't have a headache, it's worse.
Huh. I mean, I had one the first day, but that's it.
I have to imagine that your head just went.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Mine didn't. Mine went. Right? I got some bobble in there, which means my head has a chance to dissipate energy. Yours did not.
Nah, mine just hit a rock.
You just hit a rock.
Yeah.
Buddy, we should take you to the urgent care.
No. I already went to urgent care. I said
okay.
I'm fine.
Okay. So anyways, we have a fantastic topic for you guys today.
Yo, on that note.
On that segue, you are listening to 2 podcasts with head injuries currently.
Right.
Yeah.
We're going to do our best, though. I'm excited for it. I think it's a good topic.
It's a really good topic. We haven't decided what to name it yet. We will by the end of this, right?
Yeah.
But it's involving low self-esteem.
Yeah.
And it's, again, I don't have the word for it, but it involves a feeling, right? And so the question I would start it with is, do you ever get the feeling that you just don't know why people around you interact with you or show you love?
Yeah, I think I've definitely experienced that before. You experience that in a lot of different ways, like friendships, coworkers, relationships. I've often, I like to call it, or it seems to me, it's like similar to imposter syndrome.
Oh, absolutely. That's
like,
a good way of looking at it.
I'm not a good enough person, or I'm not interesting enough, or I'm not attractive enough, or I'm not smart enough for these people to want to have anything to do with me. Why do they want anything to do with me?
Oh, absolutely.
For sure.
And I've totally been down that road. And I would say that's a battle that you fight with, I would say, on and off throughout life, especially if you're not treating yourself very well at that time in life.
Yeah.
Right? And that feeling of being, like, you question yourself.
Yeah.
Why did the people around me love me? Why, I could ask, like, why does Devon hang out with me?
Yeah.
Right? You start to build this false narrative, that he's so cool. He's so much fun. He could be hanging out with other people. Why choose me? Right? And that can get especially worse around loved ones.
Yeah,
or relationships, right?
Especially depending on your attachment style, like anxious attachment, sweeties. I feel for you because I've been there. That's me. I'm the anxious attached.
Oh, yeah. Or the avoidant.
That fear of abandonment with the anxious attachment styles absolutely have you constantly asking these questions.
And I would say that sensation can get a lot worse, especially depending on how intimate the relationship is. So, for example, that sensation of becoming a burden on somebody that loves you, like your family member, your close friends. And I think the biggest one for me would be your actual relationships, romantic relationships. And that feeling only gets exacerbated by your low points.
Oh, for sure. You get that low point, you get the little negative situation, or you get you butt heads about something, or something adverse occurs, and you can just spiral with it.
That's not what I'm going for here.
All right.
So what I mean is, let's say that you are in a relationship with a person you care about dearly, you love them, it's romantic, and you start going through your personal low point, and then you see your partner happy to see you, excited to be around you. And you don't feel that great, so you start to wonder, like, why are they even with me?
Oh, wow.
I don't match this, You might look at your partner like, she's beautiful. Why are you with me? I'm boring. I don't understand why she's here. A lot of that is exacerbated by your low point.
Yeah. That and like if you feel like you carry like a weight or you're bringing baggage or things like that into the relationship. And one thing I'd like to touch base on with that is give people the chance to love you anyway. You know, like
that's a great one.
Give people the chance to love you anyway, because as we're discussing this and we're talking about having that feeling of being like, well, you know, you feel like you're a burden to people, or why would they want to be with me? I have all this baggage, or why would I even bring this or that up? Because like, it's just too much, right? But like, don't take that choice or don't take that opportunity away from somebody to love you anyway, or to just love you through it, you know, like, and you know, then you might ask the question, oh, well, what if it's too much? Well, then let them have the opportunity to tell you it's too much and communicate, right?
Yep. And so, I'm going to take this moment right here to do a pause, right?
Yeah.
And say that these feelings aren't just for romantic partners, they're for anyone that's close to you. You can feel this way towards parents loving you, siblings, close friends.
I've done it in friendships even, you know?
Absolutely. I think we both have, I'd say.
Yeah.
But these are the feelings that oftentimes come with severe depression and often feelings of self-harm. Yeah. And so if you are at that point...
I was not expecting that.
I would like to go ahead and put down on the screen the suicide hotline.
Yeah,
because you do deserve to be here. People love you. We want you around. You know, obviously... We love our followers, but
absolutely,
people intimate and close to you do love you, and that's when those feelings start to affect you the most, when you are already kind of getting close to that line of self-harm. So please keep that in mind. If you're feeling that, it's a great indicator that maybe you need to get some help. Do so, please, and we'll put that right down at the bottom.
Yeah, awesome, man. Yeah, good call.
So this kind of all boils down to it's low self-esteem.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the question becomes, what is low self-esteem?
Well, I mean, just lack of self-worth. And I think that low self-esteem looks like you not believing what other people say about you and you not seeing yourself in the same lens that other people see you in. And that can stem from a lot of different places. What do you feel like as a whole?
Well, we're going to go ahead and use more of an official definition of it. So low self-esteem, when someone lacks confidence about who they are and what they can do, often feel incompetent, unloved, or inadequate. And that is according to WebMD.
Yeah.
So that just comes to a lot of sensation of inadequacy. And that seems to fit the bill just right, I'd say.
Yeah, for
because
sure.
At that point, you're sitting there questioning why you're around, why people keep you around.
Yeah.
And so now that we have the understanding of what low self-esteem is, right, it's driven from a low idea of self-worth, and inadequacy, and more importantly, it's not having trust or confidence in your own abilities or your own value that you bring, right? And so now we're going to ask ourselves the question, how does that low self-esteem manifest itself? What does it manifest itself in, like relationships, both romantic and non-romantic?
Okay. I would say in its most extreme cases, like self-sabotage.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Like, I'll just speak about me personally. Like, for me, in the most extreme cases, low self-esteem came in the form of self-sabotage. Like, I would be so just wrecked mentally, thinking and preparing myself for the worst. That then you have like intertwined in there, like that fear of abandonment, and those feelings of inadequacy, and I would literally sabotage good relationships, friendships, because I was so afraid of people leaving me, because I had that constant feeling of low self-esteem and inadequacy, and just that caused me to be in a constant spiral where I'm looking for reasons why somebody's going to leave me and not be friends with me anymore, not be in that relationship with me anymore, find somebody that they love or like better than me. You know, like it was to a point like I couldn't even, like the thought of people going out and like having fun, doing other things made me sick, because I was like, oh, fuck, you know? Like, and I didn't know what that was back then, but like hindsight, I'm like, wow, it was just that humongous fear of abandonment, that low self-esteem.
When they wouldn't do it with you, wouldn't invite you, so to speak?
Yeah, well, and even if like there was an invite or like for some reason I couldn't go, I'd get like a knot and a pit in my stomach, because I'm like, oh, 100%. Shit, you know? And
you feel left out.
And I didn't even know why I felt that way, but I just knew that it made me feel sick, nauseous, and anxious, and afraid that something bad was going to happen, right? But like, even if I got invited and I just couldn't go, I still felt that way.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So
that's just FOMO at that point.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, just FOMO. But yeah, that's how manifested for me.
You also, I know you had a quote from the book you were reading about this particular topic.
Oh, well, I guess speaking from places that low self-esteem can manifest from, another big place is your relationship with your parents and your emotional upbringing and the emotional intelligence of your parents, right? And the book
100%.
quotes that, and I forget the name of it exactly, but it's I'll
Down
put
below.
it. Yeah, I'll
Put it down
I'll
below.
put it on the screen. Great book, by the way. I'm only about a quarter of the way through it right now. Fantastic book. Definitely recommend you reading it. It's something to do, like the title just basically is that adult children of emotionally immature parents. And on the surface, that sounds like a book that just bashes parents. It's not. It's about learning and understanding and accepting who your parents are and holding more space for love for them. After gaining that understanding. But anyway, with the quote, it just says that, children of parents who are emotionally immature kind of get that low self-esteem and develop that belief that nobody can really just want to be with them because of who they are. Like, they believe and they behave in a way that they're only valuable if they have something to give in the relationship, right? Like nobody just wants to be with me just because of who I am and just to be with me, right? And
we'll actually get to that here in a minute.
Yeah.
That's something that we actually are going to touch upon here. I think we've all felt that, but that actually relates back to our love series.
Love series. If you guys haven't watched any of those episodes, man, those things.
They're pretty deep.
We have not made a bad episode of the love
yet.
series. It's fantastic. If you
Not
don't
yet.
like any of our other episodes, I promise you'll like the love series.
They're
It's
pretty deep.
fantastic.
I was going to say, they do relate back to our love series because
Yeah.
that goes down to familial love, right?
Familial
it
love,
starts there.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents teach you
Foundational,
how to
man.
have your self-worth, your value.
Yeah.
What I was going to get at next, right, is the low self-esteem typically comes from, or a great foundation for it to come from. Again, your parents maybe didn't get you where you needed to be, or maybe your peers didn't give you positive reinforcement.
That's fair. That's another point it touches on is bullying and stuff. And
Yep.
Yeah.
There's always more than one place. Because
Sure.
my example is me. I had a great relationship with my parents. They uplifted me. They were supportive. My peers, not so nice. And that gave me a huge complex, which we go down to the word of cognitive dissonance.
Cognitive dissonance. Okay.
That's where this is going to stem
Lay it
from.
on me.
So cognitive dissonance, according to Oxford Languages, right, is the state of having inconsistent thoughts, beliefs, or attitudes, especially as relating to behavioral decisions and attitude changes. So what that basically means is that your thought of yourself in a scenario, situation, or in general does not line up with the true reality of things.
Oh, okay.
And I'll give you an example.
Makes sense.
I'll give you an example for myself. Before I started doing therapy, before I started doing boxing, before I started doing a lot of these things, my cognitive dissonance was I felt like a tiny and small human being.
Mm-hmm.
I felt, I'm 5'10", almost 5'11".
Yeah.
I weigh about 180 pounds. I'm not a small human
I was
being.
going to say, yeah, it's not a very small dude.
Nope. I have mass to me. I take up space,
Yeah.
and I couldn't concept that. I couldn't understand that in my mind. I felt that if you were to come and just give me kind of a shove, I'd blow away with the wind. That's what my mind believed, right? So
No wonder you like the boxing, huh? That's helped,
I
huh?
love the boxing.
I bet, man. That's helped a lot.
It starts to remind you weigh something.
Uh-huh.
And if you weigh too much, you're slow.
Yeah.
So, it gives you that false belief, and you create a narrative for yourself, right? If I am such and such small person, therefore I shouldn't be in certain scenarios. I don't trust myself in that scenario now.
Okay.
Because that is your cognitive dissonance. That can also come down to things of lack of self-worth.
Yeah, sure.
Right? If you
Absolutely.
believe now that in your brain you concept created that you don't have value.
Yeah.
So then you start to logically accept that, well, if I don't have value, why are they seeing value in me?
Yeah.
Then comes the imposter syndrome.
Literally, like, man, I have had such dark experiences with this. I don't even know if they're like ones I want to share on the podcast, to be honest with you.
That's up
But
to
like,
you.
Man, this is clicking a lot for me too as we sit here and speak.
You don't have to
It's
say
so
it.
funny, man, because like, we have this podcast, and I'm just going to go on a tangent here for a minute, but I've had people say to me before, like they watch the podcast or they watch some of the shorts, and they're like, man, like you could stand to say some of those things to yourself,
100%.
Oh, crushes me. Just absolutely destroys me.
You're teaching a lesson to the world that they just remind you of.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
And anyway, I just...
Here's another weird one on that same tangent.
Yeah.
Do you realize that the people around you get a free insight into your mind and get to know you better than you know a lot of them now?
Wow. That's fair.
Yeah. That's something I've had to deal with recently, that people are like, man, I didn't know about this, that. I'm like, wait, what?
Yeah, how do you know that? You're like, the podcast, dude.
And you're like, wait a minute, I am revealing a lot of myself.
Well,
so new friends, especially people when you get to know, they can know a lot more about you before you know anything about them.
Even Derek, the guest we had a couple weeks ago, a friend of yours and now a good friend of mine, he said the same thing. Like, he would be like, oh, I didn't know X, Y, and Z about you. I didn't know that you did that or that you had that experience. I'm like, yeah. In fact, go to offer some advice. Have a good conversation with them because of some of the experiences I've had and that I've shared on the podcast. That was really cool.
Canadians are amazing people.
Oh, they're great. Man.
Amazing
They're so
people.
great. Yeah.
So we've kind of touched upon that cognitive dissonance. That's one of the things. And I think that the people that have that cognitive dissonance, and then you mix in having too many one-sided conditional relationships.
Oof, yeah.
When you give and they simply receive. I have friends. I had a friend I was talking to recently who was talking to me about that trauma.
Yeah.
Whew.
Oh.
Yep. So I had a friend that I was recently talking to.
Your nose was itching or something. I thought you were about ready to get like super choked up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what are we about to talk about?
No, I have something on my nose.
Oh.
That being said, it was a very sad story.
Yeah.
Edit that out, man. Edit out me scratching my nose.
Absolutely not.
Oh, jeez.
I'm gonna zoom in on your face.
Oh well. We are all human.
Yeah.
No, I was talking to a friend recently, and they were discussing with me the fact that they'd had too many conditional relationships in their lives. They'd only discovered it through therapy. Yeah. And that had taken a severe toll on them because now they only saw themselves as a person that had to provide value.
Yeah.
And if they didn't provide value, then people dropped them. And I was going to say that the way that at least low self-esteem manifested in myself, I could relate to that. And we each deal with those things in different ways. So, for example, if I felt that I had to provide value and people only wanted me around for that, some people get really sad and kind of retract.
Yeah.
I did the opposite, not saying it's any healthier, is I was...
It's kind of like stonewalled people?
No, I would become hypercritical of myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so in my hyper-criticism, I became intensely hard on myself.
Yeah.
I would constantly work seeking that unhealthy pursuit of perfection.
Yeah. No doubt. Yeah, and similarly too, man, like it's, when we talk about getting into those one-sided relationships, it's hard, man, because you don't realize, when we're talking about where low self-esteem and everything like that stems from and talking about that relationship and upbringing with our parents and then like our peers and just like having experiences or bad experiences with relationships, and you kind of get in that cycle and you kind of just get like this blueprint or like this foundation built on these experiences that you have where you're used to, love or friendships or things being that way. And it's hard to like break that cycle and get out of that when you don't even recognize necessarily that it's a problem, right? Because that coupled with the fact that you just have low self-esteem and people just accept love that they think they deserve, and when you have that low self-esteem, of course you get in those relationships. So
that leads us to a more important thing, right?
Yeah.
You start to accept the love you think you deserve. Your mind has already accepted that with that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so you start to perpetuate that cycle.
Yeah.
And once you're in that cycle, it's really hard to get out of it.
Oh, it's tough. Yeah.
So that leads us to another question. What does low self-esteem really feel like? And I want you to explain to me your feelings of it.
Chest pain, heaviness, like actual weight in my chest that causes physical pain. And it's like, even when I was a kid, I remember feeling this way, and it like makes you feel like you're like floating in an ocean, and you're just like, you're weightless, but you're like, you weigh 1,000,000 pounds at the same time. It's so hard to describe. It's so bizarre.
That's an interesting way to put it.
Yeah.
I've never felt weightless.
Weightless, but like also like there's 1,000,000 pounds on your chest at the same time.
That's something I could relate with.
Yeah.
I always felt like it was the heaviest of weight And the way it affected me and changed me is it turned me into a chameleon.
Ah, okay.
So I learned very quickly how to mirror people.
Wow.
And so I would change my colors to meet that person's energy, needs, whatever. So it became that every single person got a different version of me.
I feel like I can relate to that a little bit. Yeah, especially like when I used to drink and everything like that, because like early in life, I never was, like even when I was in high school and like beginning years of college, I was never a big drinker. But then later in life kind of took on that chameleon effect. And like once that kind of behavior like brought apart like a certain result that made me not feel so low in my self-esteem, then like I kind of did that more. And I can definitely relate to that a bit.
The chameleon effect, as beneficial as it was a total defense mechanism. And it was great because it worked
defense
so
mechanism,
well.
It was a coping mechanism. It was a quick fix, a Band-Aid, a patch over the wound that was your low self-esteem and insecurity. Absolutely.
Because it worked really well. People like you all of a sudden, right? Because you're matching
or you at
them.
least get like the concept of that. You at least get the idea.
But it left me drained at the end of each day. So here's an example.
Because it's not really you,
It's a portion of you, but not a portion of you to that extent. Like, it's a side of me that I turn up to like 10.
Yeah.
And that's really exhausting. So one of them that I would do is I wanted to make friends while I was out dancing. I would go out, and to make friends, I would just match people's energies.
Yeah.
And I would be that different person for each person. And I would find that in my...
That does sound exhausting, yeah.
It was very exhausting. For I want to say a year or two, I went out and I made so many friends. And I would have an individual relationship with each one of them. And to the point where like they would try to pull me to each side. And it was so like rewarding to my ego.
Wow.
But it only fed a toxic side of it, right?
Yeah, well and then it's just like it's exhausting on your end, like you said, because you're just living a million different lives.
Exactly. I had people craving my attention. And you don't know the euphoria that was like.
Sure, especially when you're used to that low self-esteem and just that terrible... heavy feeling, that lonely feeling, yeah.
I'm like smiling ear to ear because it felt so good. The problem with it is, though, it wasn't real.
Yeah.
And now those people would have liked me either way.
Yeah.
Right? I just effectively accelerated that relationship building. Yeah. Because I was a mirror. I was them. And you get along best with yourself. And so it was a really interesting time in my life. And I would say that, again, the last 8 months to a year.
Yeah.
And I'm 32, by the way. Might I add that I'm 32 years old figuring this stuff out, is that I've really come into myself. I'm a person that sits there and now says, no, I don't like that. That goes against my ideas, morals, and principles.
And I think that's a good place to be, right? Because I think that, genuinely addressing and fixing low self-esteem and these feelings of loneliness and this heaviness and all the things that we've talked about, I think the real key to that is coming into yourself and prioritizing the things that make you you. And another one I heard recently that was really helpful to me was that only people who are unsure of themselves and the directions that they are going need the company of people to feel like what they're doing is right.
That's a good one.
And that's true, right? Like, and it was in the context, and I wish I knew the creator, the content creator that it was, but he like runs every day, every single day.
Are you talking about David Goggins?
No.
Oh, okay.
Not David Goggins.
That man is a savage.
But this dude's like been running every morning for like 2,900 and some days, almost 3,000. He's probably over 3,000 days by now. And he made the point of like, and look around, no one's here. He's like, but that's okay, because he's very sure of himself. He's very okay with himself. He has that high self-esteem. So that's how I think I've gone about it also. Not running every day, for damn sure. Definitely didn't do that.
You are not a runner, sir.
But coming into myself and just like being okay with some of those things alone. And
well, that brings up the question, right? How do you start to correct this?
Yeah.
And so one of the things that I have been working on, I think this is something I've always had innately in myself, but I've been really able to bring out into the light, is absolutely your self-talk.
Ooh, okay.
It's
like your inner voice type stuff.
Inner voice, right? I have trained myself.
Not everybody has that, by the way.
We don't all have an inner monologue.
It's rare, yeah. But yeah, not everybody has like an inner voice or like an inner dialogue or monologue rather.
Okay, I need you guys to comment down below. How many of you have a voice inside of your head?
I do, but like there's even now. Some people who can't like read a book silently. Like they have to like just very softly speak as they read books because they don't have that inner monologue.
If you don't have an inner monologue,
they can't just like think and hear something in their minds. Like they have to just, if they think something, they have to say it. Like they can't just say it in their head.
That's astounding.
I swear.
I can't do that. I have a voice and a song in my head at all times.
Yeah, and a song. Same. Ask Ellie. It's hilarious. Like I'll literally text her sometimes, and I'll be like, "This is the song on my radio today." And it'll be like Bon Jovi or something random.
Well, I played the song I had in my head earlier.
Yeah,
it's still in here. Yeah. The whole time.
Or like songs I haven't heard in years, dude. Like just randomly pop in my head.
Okay, so that's astounding.
Yeah.
But that's the first place to start is work on your self-talk.
Right.
So my self-talk I've trained and continuously trained, might I add. Yeah. It's not a thing that you like master and you're done. You must keep practicing. It's telling yourself the positive side of each potential coin.
Yep.
Right?
For sure.
People like to convince themselves that like, well, I'm just speaking to myself realistically. Quit it.
Yeah, no,
quit it.
You're being negative, little Nancy.
Yeah, quit your crap. Because there's always a chance, you're right, that the negative outcome could occur.
Yeah.
But that's not what you focus on.
But oppositely, so could the positive. So quit it.
What?
So I said, and oppositely, so could the positive come out to be the truth. So like, quit being a little negative Nancy.
Well, again, I have this quote that I like to listen to all the time where I remind myself of it, right? It's, what if the universe is conspiring for you?
Yeah.
Meaning, what if everything is working for you, not against you?
Well, in the same example I made at the beginning of the episode, like what if they love you anyway?
Well, absolutely.
You know,
right? Assume the best.
Yeah.
I'm going to go apply for this job.
Yeah.
I'll probably get it. And if you don't, I'll probably get something better.
That's right.
It's always reframing the situation and your self-talk into something more positive, more caring, more loving, and more optimistic for yourself. And I promise you right now, if you start to do that, your bad days become very, very infrequent.
Yeah.
Because you find something good in everything. Now, that's something that I also get from religion. That's something that might be more on religious people, but you don't have to believe in a God to be able to talk to yourself positively.
I get it from believing in Satan. Sorry, buddy.
Most people won't get that, man.
Yeah, it's okay. I hope everybody.
So, what?
I hope everybody thinks that I believe in Satan.
He doesn't believe in Satan. It's a mockery, and he's joking. I want people to be clear about that. He is a staunch atheist at this point, which I think is ridiculous. Agnostic seems most reasonable.
That's fair.
But that's a whole other conversation.
That's a whole other conversation.
Yeah. The next part is, okay, so you're working on your self-talk.
Yeah.
Which makes the next step a heck of a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that is practicing your gratitude.
Sure.
You know, while you're sitting there upset that like, how could this person love me? How could they care about? Why do they want me around? Right? I'm having a rough time. I'm just going around telling everyone that I'm upset. Let's say you're going through a breakup or lost your job, whatever. You feel like a burden. How about instead of saying I'm a burden to them, you give thanks and you say thank God or thank whatever. Right?
Or I'm just thankful.
I'm just
Are you
thankful.
capable of saying that?
I don't know.
I'm just thankful.
I am deeply rooted in my beliefs, sir.
Yeah.
I am just thankful that I have these people that care enough to listen.
Yeah.
And if
you go ahead. I'm going to say something after. Go ahead.
I am grateful enough that I have these people that are willing to listen, that'll pick up the phone, or that want to hear me, ask me questions, and care about this. And then you go back to your positive thinking. I am not a burden to them.
Yeah.
This is part of loving people.
Sure. And I would say that like that sounds really good, but depending on where you are in your journey of all of this and where you are in that low self-esteem,
it's hard.
Like we say, get back into that positive thinking or have gratitude for those people that want to be in your life. But like sometimes self-esteem is just that low. You can't do it. And my advice for that is when you can't, communicate. Ask for the reassurance.
Yes.
Like ask for reassurance. Ask like, hey, am I a burden? Do you feel like I'm a burden? And they'll be like, no, what the fuck are you talking about? I love you. No, you're not a burden. And then it's easier to get into that like positive mindset, and it gives you that little boost of like, oh, everything is okay.
I will take a step back on that one because the communication is the next point here. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
But I would say that good self-talk requires practice. It is exercise.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, God. I exercise it all the time. I still battle with that.
We all do.
As much and as well put together you or I might seem, I can promise you right now, on the daily, I battle that.
To be fair,
I practice that self-talk.
You've
Absolutely.
seen me lately go through some pretty rough stuff where I go in there going, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
And then it's not fine. And I'm like, but it'll still be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to go better some way, shape, or form.
Yep.
But I would say that when you're at your lowest point,
Yeah.
I think it's a great place to take a tiny step, because everything is tiny steps, right? And say, you know what? If you're feeling like you don't want to be around anymore, right? One more day.
Yeah.
And keep telling yourself, one more day.
Yeah.
That's a great small step.
Absolutely,
right? And take
man.
little steps along from that. One more day. Maybe today I'll call mom. Or maybe today I'll call my friend.
Yeah.
They probably want to hear from me. And I want to hear from them, right? And then that goes back to what you were saying earlier. The best thing you can do to start helping yourself with that is communication.
Communicate.
Talk
and
to
reach
those
out
around
for help,
you.
Man.
Reach out for help. And better yet, talk to people about the hard stuff.
Yeah.
Emotional stuff.
It's literally
cry sometimes if you need to.
Sometimes. Literally all the things that we boast on this podcast every time. Be vulnerable, man.
Be vulnerable.
Be vulnerable.
You are not an island.
Yeah.
You need a village.
Yeah.
It is even scientifically proven that humans need a village.
Companionship, man.
So
it's literally a survival instinct.
It's a survival instinct. Do not sit there and pretend that you can do this all on your own.
Yeah.
So whatever people you have, reach out to them. And let's say you don't have anyone or you feel you don't. Maybe it's time to start, first of all, looking around a little bit harder because you might be overlooking them.
Yeah. Sometimes, yeah.
Or two, nothing I say is always easy.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to put a little hard work in and make friends. Let's say it's on the internet. If you need to make an internet friend that makes you feel better, do that, right? And then push a little further and try to make people friends in person.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of hard work, but your life is worth doing it.
Absolutely.
Having a good, happy, fulfilled life, content life is worth putting in the effort.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you don't have anybody else.
And I don't believe,
got us.
I think you've got us, absolutely. Message us, comment at the bottom.
Yeah.
I would say that none of our lives are meant to be mediocre. No. We all deserve to live an extraordinary life. Extraordinary has different definitions for every person.
Yep.
Right? Maybe you're the person that just wants to stay home and read every fascinating book out there. That's extraordinary.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't mean you have to be out doing the most eventful things out there. It just means you live your version of an extraordinary life. Absolutely. We get one life. Don't waste it.
Well, like you talked about earlier, coming into yourself. Yeah. I think
into yourself. If you're a person that says yes all the time, right? Yeah. Start saying no when you mean it. When you don't want to say yes, say no. Express yourself.
Yep.
Tell people how you feel. I don't like that. That doesn't align with me.
Yep. Communicating, setting boundaries,
and I will
pursuing yourself, all these things.
The ironic thing in all of that, by the way, is that when you start to set boundaries, people start to like you more. You
would be surprised, but yes, that is the truth. And that was one of my biggest things because, obviously, when you don't have very high self-esteem, you're not going to be fantastic at it, because you're used to just having that anxious attachment or that fear of abandonment that, you being abrasive in any way, shape, or form is just going to make people want to leave you. I would say even especially in relationships, I was that way.
Absolutely.
Romantic relationships. But, you would be surprised to know people like you more when you just set your boundaries and you just communicate clearly,
Would you like me to give you...
Because they know you more, right?
Of course.
They know you more.
The basic analogy is, would you like me to give you a pound of gold?
Yeah.
Or a pound of water?
Yeah.
Which one would you prefer?
Yeah, gold sounds nice.
It's more scarce.
Yeah.
When you're a little more scarce, you're more desirable. It's the nature of humanity, right? So it's okay to say no sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? So, and then on that same topic, right? Do you want that pound of gold or that pound of water? Depends on your situation.
I was going to say, it depends, man. If you're out in the middle of the desert on a hot day and you're kind of lost, you might want that water.
Which reflects on what's your circle.
Yeah.
Are you in a place where people can't see your value?
Yeah.
If that is the case, find a new circle. Be that glass of water for that person in the desert.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Find your circle.
Cool.
The next thing I would say that really helped me, and it was my therapist helped me work through this one, was work on your cognitive dissonance.
Right.
Really recognize when you have a dissonance in your mind, right? That means analyze your narratives, right? For me, it was rather easy understanding that I felt small. I could look analytically and say, I'm 180 pounds. That's not small.
Yeah.
If I told someone I was 200, they'd look at you like, man, what the heck?
Yeah.
That's a high weight, right?
Yeah.
Because there's weight there, there's value. And so you have to look at it critically and say, well, the truth of the matter is I feel this way, but I'm actually this way. That was a big one for me. And you have to do that for every one of those things that seems that your mind is making negative.
Yeah.
People don't like me. Well, I have friends that keep calling me.
Yeah.
Why? They do like me.
Yeah.
Or else they wouldn't be calling me. If you have a relationship, why are they with me? Maybe have a conversation with them, right? Why are you with me?
Again, I was going to say, I was getting ready to reiterate and re-mention
communication, right?
And asking for that reassurance and asking for.
Let them help you figure out. Well, I'm with you because of your mind. You're funny. Your smile, right?
Yeah.
Let them help you critically analyze why they care about you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's not to say that you should be looking for validation in that person. It's to help remind you.
I don't think that's always negative, but
No. It shouldn't be your only thing.
Sure.
Right? But it should remind you that there's almost like countable things, tangible things that you can look at and say, no, there's a reason why people care about me.
Yeah.
And so that is the exercise you have to do, is take apart every single thing that you are unsure about.
Yeah.
And compare what you believe is the case to what actually is, and find how you make them make sense. And oftentimes you'll realize that your perception or idea of yourself made no sense, only to
Literally,
you.
as soon as we started this episode, I said that you're not seeing yourself through the same lens that everybody else sees you through.
And I will tell you, for the longest time, I had that issue with women. Oh man, it was a rough one.
Yeah.
Right? Because it was part of my childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Right? It was,
getting picked on and stuff when you were a kid. Yeah.
Why would women like me?
Yeah.
It made no sense to me. And and here's the funny part, my parents, God bless them, would tell me, because you're handsome, you're funny, you're charming, we love you.
Yeah.
And you get that
feeling. If you had a third eyeball on your forehead, your mom would tell you you're still
right? But that is a great example of that cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
Because now you sit there, well, they love me, they have to tell me those things.
Yeah.
No, they don't. Your parents can love you and not like you if you're just a jerk, right? Like if you're just a dipwad, right? It takes a give and take. Your parents usually will always love you. They don't always have to like you, right?
Yeah.
That's the same for anyone. But use that cognitive dissonance. And then, of course, going into and analyzing your relationships. Buddy, are your ribs okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'm just, believe me, I won't be cut to this frame when the final episode comes out. I'm in pain.
I know you are. I feel for you. It's not emotional either. This time it's physical.
No, it's just from eating it on the desert. Hard desert rock ground. It's not soft sand out here. It's jagged rocks.
Enjoying that Boy Scout pepper, are we, huh?
Yeah.
Enjoying like that
handlebar I took to my chest.
Rocky croissant?
Rocky croissant. Croissant.
Eating them Hertz donuts?
Oh, yeah. Anyway, sorry. Just don't mind me.
One of the last ways I would say that at least I've come up with is, especially if you're one of those people that feel that you are in one set of relationships, that you are only appreciated for the value you bring and only the value you bring. It's never two-sided a conversation.
Yeah.
It's time to either reestablish those relationships, establish the conditioning that, hey, I'm not just a giver. It needs to go both ways, or simply remove yourself from those situations.
Sure. That's fair.
Which I think we've all had that. Like I used to believe if I didn't provide help, or my intelligence, or being funny or something,
right?
I wasn't valuable. Yeah. Or money. That was a rough one for me, being a guy. Money.
Yeah.
Oof. That one's a rough one. You need to, separate yourself from that situation. In and of itself, each suggestion will help. Yeah, but if you can slowly baby step yourself into using all of them, I think your life will transform itself.
No, absolutely, man.
I mean, it has for both of us.
I was going to say, I would like to think that I'm in a fantastic place right now, but I can also very openly admit that it took years to get here. Like these processes aren't something that happen overnight, and these are things that you kind of have to apply to your daily and make habits of, and it's slow.
It's a good example actually for both of us.
What's that?
Could you have imagined yourself a few years back with your self-esteem on a podcast talking about your mental health. No.
Even when we first started this podcast, you can tell, like,
imposter syndrome.
Well, imposter syndrome and just like being shy about it, or like my voice was very, very, very quiet in the early episodes. Like I was like all the way back here and talking.
You had to pee before every episode.
Dude, I do remember that. Damn you for not letting me forget. I literally, every episode.
You'd be like,
just got to me. Yeah.
Right before.
Hold on. Yeah, and now it's just
and
kind
I would
of
squirm.
second nature.
Squirm.
Yep, you squirmed a lot. And you did this with the microphone. That's why we have mounted ones now, because when you were trying to hold the one, you just like
I don't get to be silly with the microphone anymore.
Yeah.
But and actually one of the things we noticed with some of our guests was the first thing they tell us. I don't know if I have anything to provide to this.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I don't know if I belong on that podcast. I don't have anything good to give.
Which is like totally not true.
I know. It's like, come on now. You're being asked for a reason. Again, that's your own cognitive dissonance. And, not that you only provide value if we ask you to be on here, but it's something to keep cognizant for yourself.
Yeah.
Right? You have to check yourself in those kinds of things, which brings us to our very, very beautiful conclusion, I'd say. Right? And that is that this is a very common problem. I would say that damn near every one of us deals with this.
Yeah, at some point.
And the solutions will take work, but they're not complicated work. They're just heavy lifting.
A lot of heavy lifting and a lot of emotional labor.
A lot of that can simply be reframing the way that you think about your ideas.
Yeah.
Right?
Communicating, asking for reassurance when you need it. And allowing the opportunity for, again, people to love you anyway. And that's romantic partners, that's friends, that's your family, that's whoever.
I think I love that one the most. Just let people love you.
Yeah.
And people do. And if you don't see it, reframe your mindset, because you're probably
trying to prove yourself wrong, because I bet you can't.
Constantly challenge yourself for the good, right? Aim for that good side. Forget that negative side of the coin exists. Mm-hmm. If you need to be a little realistic, reframe that as well, right? You could fail. You may have people that might not treat you right, but guess what? It's for the better. Mm-hmm. Right? Here's a good one. It's like rejection, which is something a lot of us struggle with, right? And I actually had that conversation today with one of my employees. We were joking about, because we've been cold calling businesses lately to get fleet accounts. He looked at me and he says,
"What,
buddy? I don't know if I'm equipped for all of this rejection."
Oh, that's pain. Poor buddy.
And I looked at him and I was like, "Buddy, strap in."
Strap in. It's about to get so much worse.
You're going to get a lot more rejection, but that's going to make every yes so much sweeter. Yeah. And you're going to get fewer and fewer rejections the more you practice this and you work on it and you reframe it, because the rejection doesn't have to be a no always in this tense.
Yeah.
It can just be a lesson for you to come back at it later. Yeah. Right? And let's say in personal or romantic relationships, a rejection is not a bad thing.
Nah.
It is a great indicator for people that do not suit you.
Yeah.
And
no doubt. Well, say that one more time. You go ahead and do that again.
Rejection is a great indicator for people that do not suit you.
Wow. That's a good one.
Do not have
That's
to
one of my favorite ones you've ever said, actually.
Well, thank you.
That's up there. That's top 3, bub. High five on that one.
No,
that's a good hand. It's a good hand.
Okay.
This is the bad one. My left hand's the one that's hurt.
He's got the dirty hand.
Sorry, buddy.
It's just that we view rejection often as the most negative thing, and it's not. It really isn't. It's a chance to learn. It's a chance to free yourself of people that are not good for you. It's a chance to improve yourself, and you have to be self-aware. Mm-hmm. That's one of the biggest things. Be self-aware. Yeah. If you can look at rejection,
rarely has anything to do with who you are as a person.
And when it does, again, it's a chance to be self-aware.
Yeah.
Let's say you had the blessing of someone communicating to you that, hey, you seem nice, but you came on too strong. I'm just not interested anymore. Yeah. That can either lead you to understand that, hey, maybe I have to work on coming on too strong, or, hey, these kind of people just aren't for me.
Just aren't for me, man.
Right.
I'm just the kind of person that's direct, straightforward, and says what I am after. I know I have my goals, and I know that where I'm trying to aim and where I'm trying to go.
There's a good thing to every part of rejection, so you can look at that and make it benefit yourself.
That's a good aspect. I'm glad you brought up rejection. That was a good point. That was a good thing to add.
It's a positive side to every option, every
Absolutely,
outcome.
Man. No doubt.
So these are all tools that you guys can use to work on your personal self-esteem. Yeah. And I'm not going to say jump on every single one of them at once. Yeah. Take them step by step, baby steps. They might look like a millimeter today, an inch tomorrow, and a meter in a month.
Yep. You never know, man. Growth is not linear.
No,
never is. Never
and you
will
will
be.
take steps back.
Yep.
Like you said, not linear. It will.
100% does not always mean 100% every day. It might mean 70% today and 30 tomorrow.
Yep.
Just how it is,
But at the end of the year, end of the month, the week, whatever, you will be better for it.
No doubt.
And remember, you have value. You matter to people, whether you realize it or not, and your absence would be felt in this life if you were not around.
Booyah.
So I want to remind you again, if you are feeling concerns of self-harm, feeling like you just don't belong, again, the helpline will be at the bottom.
Always.
And please seek out help, therapy, friends, loved ones.
Little Pricks Podcasts.
Little Pricks Podcast, right? And we will most likely guide you to therapy, to be fair.
Yeah.
Because sometimes we get too many messages, but we still care about you, and that's why I'm reiterating this point. We want you here.
Yeah.
Right? I would rather deal with someone on their worst day than having them gone.
Yeah, no doubt.
So.
Well said, buddy.
I think on that note, it's time to go.
It's time to go.
Thank you guys for tuning in. Please like, subscribe, follow. Share this with a friend you think could really use this. I think this is one of those episodes that actually carries weight.
Yeah. I think a lot of them carry weight, but this one was...
This one specifically, I think, hits home for a lot of us, right?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I even learned a lot from it, so...
So from your half-lobotomized hosts...
Yep. Thanks for tuning in.
This is actually Adam, who they took a rib from to create Eve.
Oh, God. Something. I feel like that's what happened. I feel like that thing's just gone.
Which is funny because you don't believe in it.
Nope. Fairy tales.
We'll see you guys next week. Please tune in, and we'll see you guys again soon. Adios.
Bye.
That was really good.
All right,